Coming up on a Wednesday edition of the Locked On Jaguar Squad Show, it is now 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, March 11th. The NFL league year has officially begun. Brian Thomas Jr. is still a Jaguar. Maxx Crosby is still a Las Vegas Raider. Will those two hold? We'll find out together.
You know what? They're big fish hunting, and I know we're going to talk about that, but I really think the Jaguars really like their team. They're not in the market for anything, but they're sniffing around just in case they see something at a bargain.
Duval, it's the Jaguars Squad. Everything Jacksonville Jaguars every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Sunshine State. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Gear up. The Jaguars Squad Show starts now.
What is going on, party people? Happy New Year. I never thought I'd say that on March 11th, but here we are. Mia O'Brien, Brian, Tony, Wigg, Wiggins, Marques Ogden, the former Jaguar of this squad show, will join us here momentarily. A disclaimer right off the top. I am still fighting a little bit of the backfire from my 10 games last week in the Atlantic Sun tournament on the play-by-play call. So if I, have a kerfuffle or two, hopefully you guys will be A-okay with that. But you can always call us out. You always can chime in on the conversation if you're watching live on the Locked On Jaguars YouTube channel by commenting. And of course, you should like and subscribe to this episode and this channel while you are here. All episodes of Locked On Jaguars and the Locked On Jaguar Squad Show available on demand wherever you get your podcast. Let's start with our friend Dutcho, who says, are we going to see some breaking news? Well, T-Wig, it would be fun to maybe see some breaking news as the clock does strike 4:01 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But certainly in the world of Jacksonville Jaguars, I know I led by saying the three words that you cannot say in front of a Jaguars fan these days, which are in order, Brian Thomas Jr. I do not believe that the former first rounder will be moved.
I don't either. And it's a strong wide receiver draft for teams that are in need of a wide receiver. The only way I can see it happening is if someone that really, really believes him, like Chad Hall, and Chad Hall is now a wide receiver. He's on staff. Last year, I think he was in a different capacity, but now he's back at coaching his position. Mm-hmm. If he stands on the table for him and say, look, we can get him right now, just do it. And they overpay. That's the only way that I see that happening. But they appear to be ready to hold on to Brian Thomas Jr. and try to extract all of that potential that we saw. See, that's the thing about it, Mia. You can't go back and act like you didn't see what you saw his rookie year. And because of that, they believe that they can get that back out of them. They have a track record of being able to develop wide receivers, particularly. So, yeah, I think coaches are going to just coach and keep the talent they have unless somebody comes trying to pay them way more than market value.
So when we say that we are beginning the show by discussing big fish, Brian Thomas Jr. is not one of those big fish, folks. Right. Unless, and this is a larger conversation, T-Wig, as the league year does begin across the NFL, I believe at this juncture, the Jaguars have re-signed three of their own. They've re-signed Buster Brown to a 3-year contract. They've re-signed Dennis Gardick to a 2-year contract and Quentin Morris to a 1-year deal. All of those deals went down prior to the legal tampering window opening at noon on Monday. The Jaguars are one of 4 teams that have yet to sign someone outside of their organization. And at this juncture, I don't know if we're going to see anyone else signed from outside of Duval here in these next initial few days of free agency. I do think, to be clear, they will add bodies at some point ahead of camp. They need 90 members to their 90-man roster, and they only have so many draft picks and so many spots that can be allocated to undrafted free agent rookies. But with that said, I think the interesting place the Jaguars find themselves is that because they are suddenly in play for multiple compensatory picks, they turn their attention and they look at the current shape of their roster and turn their attention to swinging for the fences with a massive game-changing trade. If they can't pull off that big fish hunt, if they can't make that massive trade for, let's throw it out there, a Maxx Crosby, a Dexter Lawrence, if that trade cannot be completed, then I think the Jaguars are standing put and they'll add pieces here and there that maybe aren't exactly the top of the market names that many are perhaps thinking about.
Yeah, so I agree with you. And I've been talking about that on the podcast each and every day, that you may not see them go for quantity. They're going to go for quality, because at this point, when you look at the team, they won 13 games. Let's just say realistically, that's an 11-win roster. That's what you'll be willing to lay down. That looking forward to what they have right now, that they should have in multiple years, considering that Trevor's improved and nothing will happen to him, that they have multiple years of being a 10, 11-win roster. Now all they need is playmakers. They got all of the glue guys, the middle guys. And that's why it was such a big splash for me when they went and got Travis Hunter last year. That is what they were trying to do. They were putting the foam on top of everything while they had the opportunity. And they're going to do it again, because they believe in drafting, they can build it from the middle up. And guys that they're getting for prices that are ground prices are not going to be bottom of the barrel in terms of their production and their contribution and how they can bring them along in the course of their development. I think what they're really doing, the 13 wins kind of sped them up a little bit, because they realized this team was better than anybody imagined. They were way better than a 4-win team. And we all know that, because look at all of the guys that are making contributions that were already here. And they let 2 more guys go because they believe positionally, if they can get quality production at those positions without paying a total of $95 million or $90 million. So now they're getting guys whose skill sets and their career trajectory kind of matches up with what they see, and they're going to kind of blend those things together. So the only thing that can get you over the top is either Brian Thomas Jr. turning back into Brian Thomas Jr., which we all hope that happens. Both edge rushers go out and get 14 sacks apiece, or 26 sacks combined, and Mason Smith wakes up, right? Travis Hunter turns out to be everything you want him to be, and then maybe to get a little bit of a push of, okay, we need one more thing. That's the one thing we're talking about. And that's why they're big game hunting, and you don't see them paying these prices for guys that might not be too much better than the people that they already have in-house. The one thing that will make shaking up the continuity of this team worth it is a for sure. And everybody knows what a for sure is. Sometimes it's in late night phone calls. Sometimes it's when you're trying to borrow money. Sometimes it's you can count on it. And that's why they're going after these big time players, Jalen Carter. That's why you're hearing all these names mentioned. And it's nothing but guys that you ain't got to worry about, which is why I brought up Trent Williams.
Right. And those are players at positions where generational talents or even all pros don't come across every single draft class. You can't tell me right now that there is a Jalen Carter in the draft class this upcoming April. You can't tell me in good faith that there is a Trent Williams available in the draft this April. And so therefore, that's why you would make the move for those players, because it's the Earth theory. There are not that many of them walking on the planet. And the same especially goes for that 3 technique position that we know has been the biggest question mark in Jacksonville since our good friend Calais Campbell, the mayor, made his way out of town. And yes, Vincent, I do see Sports Center. The top 3 edges remaining are Joey Bosa, Calais Campbell, Jadeveon Clowney. I encourage you all to go back and listen to Monday's squad show, because T. Wigg made one of the more profound analogies, which he makes a lot of them here on Locked On Jaguars. But the idea of Trayvon Walker could be the next Calais Campbell. And everybody who's listening to this show, the 70 plus of you that are already locked in here less than 10 minutes into the program, y'all say that you want the mayor back. Well, what if I told you you may have a younger version of Calais Campbell here right now, and all you need is a third true rugged edge defender who you could get in a deep edge defender class in April's draft to unlock what Trayvon could be if he has the flexibility to move up and down the line. And so a long way of saying, unless it is someone, to your point, who is so surefire, if it is Maxx Crosby, Jalen Carter, Dexter Lawrence, at those positions where there are just not that many alpha top 5 guys, then I don't think the Jaguars are that worried about. They like who they have. They'll find their diamonds in the rough, both in the draft and in free agency. But I really don't think this is going to be, oh my goodness, we lost out on Logan Hall because we weren't willing to pay $7 million per year, and the Texans were. Liam Cohen was in the building with Logan Hall. So I would think if he was that gung-ho about the guy, we would have known about it, and the Jaguars would have made a push for him.
Yeah, Logan Hall is sort of a 5 technique. He He's basically the dude that the critics of Trayvon. That's what it is. That's what he is. But he's not as good of an edge rusher. He did not play 3 technique. That would have been a total projection to see him do that. Kalijah Cansey, their first round pick from Pittsburgh, the one they kept comparing to Aaron Donald, he played 3 technique, and Vita Vea is the nose. So when you see this other dude out there, he's a big defensive end. That also wouldn't solve your problem. It was just what that is replacing the kid that they took from Miami last year. That's what that would be replacing Dewan Smoot. That would be replacing Emmanuel Ogbah. That wouldn't be getting the extra thing that you want. One of the things that I suggested when you hear rumors, and I mention his name because Dilla is sourced. I don't usually mention people that aren't officially in media like that, but no, I will tell you right now, I have texted Dilla several times with the "Hey big head, what you hearing?" type stuff. So he said that that he believed that they were around 23 million and they were actually negotiating. He wasn't the only one to report that, by the way.
With Trey Hendrickson, yes. And I heard the same thing. I heard the same thing, that they were trying to, but ultimately, even if they were to have gotten a deal done, and if the Maxx Crosby to Baltimore trade had gone through, they ultimately would have had to have a massive signing bonus presented to Trey Hendrickson in order to work the cap number to fit where the Jaguars currently stand. And we talked about it last squad show. Like, you cannot have 3 dudes who you are paying top of the market money at one position.
Now, wait a minute. Now, here's where I think you could.
Oh.
Technically. What you really can't. But since that's what they were trying to do, and whether the rumors about Jalen Carter are true, I don't know. And John Franklin Myers and them looking at 3 techniques, they have said, and we were in the room, we need to improve our pass rush. They didn't necessarily say we need to find somebody better than Joshua Trayvon. So that's why I kept going with the interior, because anytime you hear pass rush, you think, oh my God, they're talking about defensive ends. And I pointed out today on the show that most people didn't know who Milton Williams was because all they talked about was Jalen Carter. And then they didn't know who Moro Ojomo was because all they talked about was everybody else. Well, in Vic Fangio's front, and Vic Fangio once had a linebackers coach by the name of Anthony Campanile. Here's the thing. In the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, when Mahomes was running for his life, Jalen Carter was at nose guard. Moro Ojomo was at defensive end at 6'2", 293, the same size as John Franklin Myers. And Milton Williams was the one next to him. And Jalen Carter didn't get the sacks. It was those other guys. Inside pressure. And I keep saying it over and over again. When we had Saxonville, then there was Dante Fowler and Yannick Ngakoue. You know what else we had? We had Malik Jackson and Calais Campbell. And Marcel Darius was actually a nose tackle who could play 3 technique and defensive end. So he broke the quarterback for Texas's arm in the national championship game playing defensive end. So they had inside pressure. And it's so important. So here's what I propose today. They can get all 3 pass rushers and junk it up. And what I mean by junk it up is play a variation of a defense you've never seen and just pray on first down. Devon Hamilton, Trayvon, not necessarily lined up inside because I hear y'all coming with that I told you so stuff. No, at 4-eye, right? Then, or at 4-eye, stand somebody up on one end like a strong side linebacker.
Dennis Gardick, that's why you re-signed him.
Or Josh in this case. And then 9 wide, Trey Hendrickson. Junk it up. Just say, okay, we want to fix the interior. This is how we're going to do it. While Trayvon's playing on a $15 million cap, we're going to get this so we can make a decision next year on Trayvon or Josh and have Hendrickson right there on this team. I'm not saying that they were going to trade one of those guys or get rid of anybody to make room for Hendrickson. I'm saying that the only way that they can make it happen, Mia, with all 3 of them is if they just going to play some quirky defense. Like Wade Phillips once said, if you got good players and you can't find a scheme for them, you need to change your scheme. So that's why I brought that up, because sometimes when you have an abundance of guys at the position, as long as you have an X factor, the X factor is Trayvon is good against the run. So you ain't going to get beat up because you only have one run stopper on the line. So the dude that everybody keeps wanting to get rid of is actually the X factor if they decide to get a 3rd edge rusher.
I do not see that the Trey Hendrickson, oh, there we go. He got signed. Yes, we know. Jaguars prod. I do not see that it has gone official yet since the league year began 15 minutes ago on the dot, but certainly is something we will monitor. So yeah, as of this writing, Trey Hendrickson is off the board. He is headed to Baltimore in lieu of Maxx Crosby headed back to Las Vegas because the Ravens reneged on that trade. Trades are now official that were put into place here over the last week or so. One more real quick before we take our first time out from Brian. To reiterate, T-Wig and I are both of the opinion the Jaguars are not going to be outright signing one of these big names on the market, but they could swing a trade for one of those big names. Brian says, do we really have the pieces to big name hunt, though? And so I'm curious if, Brian, that's from the perspective of this is not a team that's one piece away, or this is a team that doesn't have the capital to use in a trade.
There's another market, and the market is I'll take him off your hands. Jonathan Grenard, whatever his salary is, if they're shopping him, if it's either let him sign somewhere or we release him. We've seen it happen. People have been getting released and folks have been Pittman, the receiver from the Colts. They actually tried to trade him. I don't think they did.
No, they did to the Steelers. He's a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Right. For a 7th round pick. You see? And then they extended him at 3 years, $63 million. So wait a minute. That's a player that they valued that they just gave a pick swap. I mean, a 7th round pick, the lowest day 3 pick. You got to find a situation where they want to get rid of a dude, but they don't want to have to pay the guaranteed portion of the salary. And that's where Jonathan Grenard is. They want to get under the cap. They want to move him. So you pay him something to move him, but you still have to be able to absorb that right when you actually make the trade.
Matt Jones with actually a pretty good comment. I know, Matt, you don't always have the best. LOL. Not that Matt Jones, by the way, for those of you listening on demand, only on audio. BJ Green on one side, Josh Hines-Allen on the other side. Trayvon moves inside with the hand on the ground in that scenario that you were outlining, T-Wig. And so the point being, you don't need Trey Hendrickson if you have BJ Green or someone else you draft in-house.
Well, okay, if you draft somebody and he's good enough, but we're talking about Trey Hendrickson versus BJ Green. The reason you're doing it isn't to move Trayvon or to get a third guy like that, because when you put BJ Green on the field on first down, you're losing something. He's 6'1", 270 pounds. You're trying to gain stuff without losing anything. That's why I said Trayvon is the X factor, because you won't lose anything against the run, but the dude actually has to be a better version of Trayvon in order for Trayvon to move, and BJ Green ain't it. And so that's the thing. BJ Green isn't better, in my opinion, than Eric Armstead, maybe at edge rushing, but he's not better than Trayvon. So guess what? You just put a person on the field that's not one of your 4 best players, and that's the goal. The goal is to get one of your 4 best players on the field, not to necessarily put yourself in a situation where you're hustling backwards. I just said you got to find a scheme for your best players. So now you wouldn't be doing that. You would be finding a less talented player, putting them on the field just to put yourself in a scheme. And that's not what I'm talking about.
Couple of news and notes. Thank you to everyone in the chat who's keeping us posted on the very latest around the league. Our friend Robert, the Bucs did indeed place a tender on Sean Tucker, a name that I know has been thrown around throughout Jaguars Twitter as a potential match for the Jaguars as a veteran free agent running back that they could add. The one King David, what's going on? Javon Hargrave just announced that he will officially be released by the Vikings. Robert says it's not only Hargrave, it is officially Jonathan Allen as well. 2 more veteran defensive tackles who, because they were released, would not count against the Jaguars' compensatory draft count in the 2027 NFL draft. We have to take a timeout. When we return, the one move that you, T-Wig, and of course Marques Ogden, who will join us here momentarily, want to see made by the Big Cats. That's coming up next on the Locked On Jaguar Squad Show. Welcome to the 5-hour energy flavor draft with 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like confetti craze, fruity rainbow, or cotton candy. There is something for everyone. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and I've got my number 1 pick for the 5-hour energy flavor draft. Here is how you do it. Pick your flavor. I'm going to go with that. I really like the sound of that confetti craze. What I really love about it is so many different flavors all in one. And of course, it makes you feel like you are ready to roar, whether it is powering through a podcast or a back-to-back podcast, in my case, a radio show, or just making it through your day. It is obviously a flavor that is going to hit your taste buds the right way and give you that 5-hour energy boost that you need. 5-hour energy boost. They give you that boost with 0 sugar. They also have a lot of upcoming flavor innovations planned. One that I'd love to see made. How about something like berry? I'm not really a big fruit person, but very big into the berry drink flavors. We'll see if one of those is on the market here in the coming months and weeks from 5-Hour Energy. And so be sure to check them out and find your new favorite flavor of 5-Hour Energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or over on Amazon. All right, we're still awaiting Marques Ogden, who will join us here on this Wednesday edition of the Squad Show any minute now. But in the interim, Tony T. Wigg Wiggins, I will ask you, what is the move you want to see made by the Jacksonville Jaguars? I see the chat is lighting up with their takes, and we'll play them here live. But what is the move that you want to see made here in the coming days and weeks?
What I'd like to see them do, when you say want, I wish I could put wanted, because it was to touch the offensive line with a proven player like an Elton Jenkins, but they didn't do it. So they have confidence in the people that they have. From this point forward, it would be to take a look around to see what's going on with Milton Williams, and not Milton Williams, Javon Hargrave, and to see what's going on with him, and to see if, I don't like to use the word kicking the tires, but Jonathan Allen, both those guys seemed like they had an issue with Dennis Flores' defense, because they knew that, the money that can be made is when you're getting after the quarterback. And that's not really a defense that's designed for the hand on the ground defensive lineman to get to the quarterback. So now they didn't put up the numbers that could have gotten them a bigger contract or could have warranted them to have more interest. Milton, I keep saying Milton. Javon Hargrave apparently has been released, and Jonathan Allen, if it hasn't happened, it will happen. They have to look at the veteran market right now for a 3 technique, because in a draft that's really shallow of those guys, Grayson Halton may not fall to him, or whoever they want may not be there at 56. And this organization is all about getting value, and you don't want to ever have to reach or either move back too much. It's bad enough that they don't have a first-round pick, and we know it's for a really, really good reason. But in a draft like this, I think at 56, if anything, you need to be trying to come up, not move back.
Plenty of you guys in the chat are now exclaiming your excitement that Bradley Chubb has officially been released by the Miami Dolphins. T-Wig, do you see a reunion with Anthony Campanelli, much like the Emmanuel Ogbah reunion 1 year ago, coming down the pipeline?
Depending on what the medicals say, because for all of the reasons other than medicals, yeah, I see a reunion. For one, Bradley Chubb has made a bunch of money. And 2, Bradley Chubb ain't won a whole bunch. And 3, the money you could give him and to talk about the familiarity aspect of it. And now, once you get through first down, you can bring Bradley Chubb. Now, if you go into those situations, you can go to those 3 pass rushers, because I'll be real comfortable with that. But it's all about the medicals. He's been banged up. But sometimes when you don't need a guy to do as much, you can pay him a little bit less, and then his role will be more defined, and he can be reunited with Camp, who everybody who's ever played for him is crazy about him. I think it's a win-win situation.
Vincent says that the one move he would like to see made by the Jaguars, I would like to see us package our many day 2 and 3 picks and have a stronger, leaner draft. I am pretty sure this will happen.
I like the thought of it if you could move up and strike and get one player, but that's kind of what they did last year when they went up for Travis. They didn't just give up a first, they gave up a second and another first and some change. And even though they still got a lot of production out of the guys that they've taken, that should be something that you say, okay, if it worked, let's do it again. This is a draft where the strength of the draft, other than the guys at the very, very top, and then some of the guys that were filtered towards the back end of the first and the early second round, I've heard the strength of this draft is between 45 and 80. So if that's where you're lying at, and that's where you're able to get more bang for your buck, and that happens to be your superpower, getting more bang for your buck, now you're not just going to get the bang that everybody else is going to get. You're going to get even more, because you're going to be able to do more with less. So I wouldn't give up the thing that has been a strength in my position unless it's for a great player, and they already did that a year ago.
Right on cue, our friend Marques Ogden is here on this Wednesday edition of the Jaguar Squad Show. What's going on, Marques? Great to see you as always.
What's
And
up, everybody?
perfect timing. I was just about to ask you, what is the move that, with the league year officially beginning 24 minutes ago, as we come at you live at 4:24 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Eastern Seaboard, what is the one move, Marques, that you want to see the Jaguars make?
Man, I mean, I tell you, there's so many guys that are gone right now, but I would love to see them try to, I think Dexter Lawrence is still available, and I don't know what's going to cost. That means it could be a lot of money in that regard, but I would love to see them get a good veteran D tackle if possible. But again, I don't know, man. So many people have already been gone. I mean, guys are signing left and right, man. It's nuts. I mean, like, guys you never heard getting, 10 million a year, 12 million a year. I'm like, what? Like, I ain't heard of these guys, man. So, like, I mean, honestly, I still would love to see them get a defensive tackle. Again, I think, where did Panthers? I'm in Carolina. Devin Lloyd's now, he's a Panther. He's coming to the Panthers for like what, 20 million a year or something like that,
15.
man. 15. So, like, yeah, man, like, I would love to see them get a linebacker or a three technique. That's why I think they could really use some help.
So, on the subject of our opening conversation surrounding big fish hunting only, are you at a point where if the Jaguars' only outside move is that they make a trade for one of these marquee interior defensive linemen or edge rushers, you would be A-okay with that, Marques?
Yeah, I mean, because right now, like I said, right, Mia, and Tony said it's so great. That's why I love being on the show and work with you guys. There's so much talent in the draft at those later rounds, right? I mean, you can find some young guys to come in. Now, if it's a marquee player that's an edge rusher or three, yeah, try to get him in here. I get that. But if it's not a marquee player, you just have to. I think there's plenty of talent in the draft to get some young talent in here and grow them on the farm and let them do what they do best.
So,
I'm hitting the go. T-Wig, we have some breaking news. Bradley Chubb is headed to the Buffalo Bills on a 3-year deal. They locked up Joey Bosa 1 year ago. They locked up Von Miller a couple years before that with a hefty contract despite his age. And now the Buffalo Bills are able to sign the former Miami Dolphins pass rusher.
So this is when somebody just asked, like, do we have what it takes to get people? Dude, there are people getting released that teams are giving 3-year contracts, and the teams are getting absolutely nothing for them because what they're doing is holding people hostage, and in a good way. And here's how you get Trent Williams. I'll tell everybody how you do it. The 49ers have him at $32 million, $39 million this year. $32 million of it is salary. Okay. They need somebody to take that away. They're trying to get him to renegotiate and put the void years on in. He's like, nah, because he knows he can, if he can force their hand, because he'll say, no, we're playing at that $32 million salary. I'm not letting you off the hook. They have to then cut him and just take the dead cap hit and get the $32 million off of the salary, make it a June 1st designation. That's where a team like Jacksonville says, you know what? What happened with Geno Smith? He got traded to the Jets for a 7th-round pick swap, and the team that traded him agreed to pay some of his salary. They'll look at it like this. Anything that we don't have to pay that we would have had to pay, the Jaguars can give them a 6th-round pick for Trent Williams and say, okay, out of that $32 million, we're only paying 12. The 49ers would still look at it as a $12 million savings, and they get a pick. That's how it happens. That's how it works. And maybe what James Gladstone is doing is sitting around here looking at that secondary market like that and can get a really, really good player.
Just because it's coming up in the chat multiple times over. And before we take our next break, I do want to address this one. Vincent says, I would trade for Trent Williams, trading Walker Little and a 4th if they want to get off of his contract that badly out there in San Francisco. I saw this one from Everett as well. News on Walker Little, trade or release? No. Walker Little is entering the second year of a 3-year deal that I understand. There are those of you who are Walker Little haters here on the Locked On Jaguar Squad channel. That's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. At the end of the day, he's a middle-of-the-road starter at his floor in the National Football League at left tackle, a premium position that, as we discussed at the top of the show, Marques knows all too well. There aren't that many NFL starting linemen walking around the earth right now. That's not all pros, just capable starting offensive linemen. They are in short supply in 2026. And so I say this to say, with Cole Van Lannon returning off of the injury to his knee and his recovery, I do not believe the Jaguars will be looking to move Walker Little anytime soon. That is not to say Cole won't be ready for the start of the year. That is just to say that this is a regime that, as we have talked about time and time again on this show, James Gladstone and Liam Cohen were in Los Angeles in 2022 when the Rams had to use 14 different offensive linemen. Those two men were deeply affected by the attrition in the trenches. And so if that is the move you want to see made, I'm here to tell you it's not going to happen. At least, I mean, if it happens, folks, it's not until the trade deadline. So get used to it.
Yeah, and people have to understand the bonus money that they gave him is gone, man. You ain't getting it back by trading him. So it's not what you think. You know, he's got it. When he gets the signing bonus, that's it. It's gone. That'll be more great money. Yep.
Guarantee. I mean, again, Walker Little is not a premier left tackle, but he is a above average, middle of the road left tackle that, again, can also, as we saw last year, play offensive guard. And that is very hard to find because it shows to me, and I tell everybody, I said this on the show, if he can bring that toughness and tenacity that he had, right, at guard, and put it out there with the footwork at left tackle and bring the tenacity to match and have the footwork, you've got a very good left tackle. So it's not like he's a lost cause, but again, like I said, you're not going to just throw him away because you don't like him. Like, you got to be able to, if you're going to throw somebody, we got to replace them with somebody better. Right. And that's business. You don't throw somebody out the door and say, hey, you're gone, and then have nothing to replace them with. You got to be strategic. So, and again, if you want to give him, like you said, right, trade deadline, you want to move him, fine, but you're going to have to get some good value for him. You're just going to cut him and let him go. That's just not going to happen.
Free agency is in full swing, but we are briefly going to pivot to the NFL draft. T-Wig got on the horn for today's program, and he was already cooking up a new mock draft for Locked On Jaguars. He's going to introduce us to some names he has his eye on coming up next here on the Locked On Jaguar Squad Show. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. Heck, I've got a quad box going on the TV to my left right now. It's 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on a Wednesday. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there is always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want. Rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits for you. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. Go safe, go bold, and ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Oh, I see that chat lighting up. They are ready to go here for the second half of this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Jaguar Squad Show. Marques Ogden, Tony T-Wig Wiggins. I am Mia O'Brien. T-Wig cooking up another mock draft for us. I don't want you to necessarily give us the full mock draft if that's going to be a feature for the everydayers on an upcoming episode of Locked On Jaguars on the daily side, but maybe a prospect or two. Who would you like to discuss today on this fine Wednesday?
All right, so I've been trying to do these mock drafts, and what I try to do when I do it is I attempt to just operate mine and let the computer do the other trades. And I keep coming up at number 56 based on what hasn't happened in free agency with Anthony Hill, a linebacker out of Texas. And because you have to think that, okay, even though they're going to put more competition, they're going to allow the competition between Ventrell Miller and Jack Kaiser, getting another big body dude into that room, because that's only three people. And for Oluokun, you always have attrition during the season because of little aches and pains. And for Oluokun's not young. Anthony Hill is a dude that can play off ball and play Mike. He's fast, he's big, he's athletic. And when you look at his size, it just blows my mind. He's 6'2", 238. And the dude that he'd be replacing was 6'3", 238. So it's like he's a fast, fast former 5-star recruit. He just keeps landing to me. And then in the third round, I'm just sitting there thinking, maybe that's where that other running back comes from. And Emmett Johnson from Nebraska just keeps falling to us. So if they did that, I would not be upset.
All right. So we got Anthony Hill, an inside linebacker or off-ball linebacker, we will call him, your immediate replacement for Devin Lloyd with pick 56, and then Emmett Johnson, the running back out of Nebraska, with one of those 3 third-round picks, given the Jaguars have 2 compensatory picks by way of Detroit Lions. Marcus, at the surface level, off-ball linebacker being the pick at 56, running back one of those 3 third-round picks. What say you?
I love it. I absolutely love it. And when we've talked about this, right, you want to get somebody young to replace Lloyd, because this way you have them for a while. They could be, they can come again in the second round at off-ball linebackers. You all call, we used to call it Mike linebacker back when I played in the day. He can start right away, right? At that pick, he comes in, learns the system. He gets entrenched in the meeting rooms. You know, he stays, you know, like I did. You know, I think, man, it was funny. Like, you know, T-Wig, when I got drafted, I think like every one of us except Byron, because Byron, no, Byron too. All of us stayed. Like none of us left. All the rookies, we all stayed. We got apartments. Byron bought a house in Queens Land, a little bit for the rest of us, but that was cool, you know, but we all stayed. So stay and learn and get entrenched into the system, learn the plays, learn the playbook, and make moves. And we also talk about a running back, right? We said it's going to be better to draft a young guy, because you bring in a young guy who has a lot more speed, has a lot less wear and tear on his body. He could be a good fit. Again, the third round, you can find a guy that can compete and actually contribute right away as a rookie. And ETN's gone, and you want to get a good mix of running backs and keep them churning. This way, nobody burns out or gets hurt. So I like the off-ball linebacker in the second round, and I like a running back as one of our 3 picks in round 3 for sure.
And just for housekeeping, the next 2 picks was Jalen Kilgore, the active, violent safety. He can play in the box. He can play free safety out of South Carolina. The last one you'll love, man, Isaiah World out at Oregon. He's a big, tall left tackle. They say he has the highest ceiling, but he's a little bit of an older player. I think he's 24. The thing is at 6'8", 309, a lot of tools to work with, and I think Sean Starrett is the truth. So that would be something that I would look at. And that's where you want to pick these linemen, man. You want to, I just say every year, every 2 years, you need to at least add 3 young linemen in the draft and have them in your chain, just in case when you start losing people, you're not out here chasing and overpaying people on the free agency market. You're developing and promoting your own guys, kind of like Green Bay, because that's how they can let Elkin Jenkins go, because they build it through the draft and they elevate their own guys. They've been doing it. The John kid out of Duke a few years back, and then even back to David Bakhtiari, who was a 4th-round pick, who played forever and was an all-pro multiple times. They draft and develop their offensive line, and they usually do it right there in the 3rd and 4th round.
Now, to that point, the Jaguars did draft 2 offensive linemen last year, Jonah Monheim and Wyatt Milam. And, of course, whether or not the Jaguars will have roster availability at that position remains a question. But I agree with you, T-Wig. Again, it needs to be a position where you always are developing on the farm, as Marcus said, behind the scenes, even if you don't see the fruits of that drafting until much later.
And remember, those 2 guys were interior. So now if they're going to take a developmental player, it's going to be one of the guys on the edge.
And again, you can never have enough good offensive linemen. That is the one position where if you can find somebody, you'll make room on your roster, because finding good ones, especially to develop, as T-Wig said, you said to me, they're not just walking around the earth. So finding a good one and getting them onto and locking them in, especially for cheap, and then developing them, that's the way to go.
If I'm not mistaken, I hope I'm not. To give you my point about Green Bay, they had too many. They had like 10. And I think they called and said, hey, this Cole Van Lannon kid can play. I think that's where they got Cole Van Lannon from because they just had too many people. And it was that time it was like, look, this dude can do it. And they got, I think, Balky I think Balky traded a 6th-round pick for him, if I'm not
A
mistaken.
7th, as a matter of fact. And
See, there's Trent Balky again.
I can tell you from firsthand knowledge. People talk. So the word was getting around the league that Cole could play. And the Jaguars noted that, hey, we probably need to get some more depth in the back behind the scenes. And here we are 3 years later. He is presumably the starting left tackle. Before we get to your responses to some of our Guess the Prospect names that T-Wig threw out in this mock draft he's working on, I actually want to ask you a question, T-Wig, because I've posed this to several people now, and maybe Marcus has an opinion on it as well. The Jaguars safety room. I know we talked about it Monday. I love Kilgore out of South Carolina. I think he's the type of guy who plays like his hair's on fire, which is exactly the type of guy that Anthony Campanelli wants. But realistically, what's the long-term play with Antonio Johnson? What's the long-term play with Caleb Ransaw? Rayon Lane, is he just a special teamer? You clearly are letting Andrew Wingard test the open market, so I don't think he's back. Eric Murray is on the back 9, but still at least has a year or two left, both in terms of his actual play on the field, but also on his contract. And so how early do you realistically think they address safety? Because I've heard both sides. I've heard some people who say, don't be surprised if safety's the pick at 56. And I've heard people who say they can't address safety until day 3 because they've already got enough young guys in that room.
All right, so one of them's coming off of a Liz Frank injury, right?
Mm-hmm.
So guess what? The doctors know where he is, but still, you never know until a dude gets out there and starts running around. Eric Murray missed some time last year, right? When he got hit in the neck, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Dewey Wingard was playing, and Dewey Wingard, he was out there, he was helping out, but he ain't here. So now Rayon Lane, core special teams player, played pretty decently. Is that what you want to do? We're gonna keep 5. So here's what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't go pay a veteran $2 million a year. You know what I do? I draft a dude in the 3rd round and pay him $3 million over 4 years. That's what I'm talking about. The Kilgore pick was a 4th-round pick. That's exactly when you have to address this, in my opinion. And what happens is you can say, well, we even if all 4 guys are healthy, if you're gonna keep 5, you never say, well, we got 4. The only reason you'll say that is to keep you from going out and spending $10 million. But when you're talking about getting a dude as a 4th-round pick to be the 5th person in that room, a dude who, like you say, plays with his feet on fire, guess what he's going to do? He's going to raise the floor of that room. He's going to compete, and he's going to let everybody in there, get hurt if you want to. That's how Miami's good in football. That's how Ohio State's wide receiver room is good. That's how you raise the room. You got to cause that friction that causes combustion before you can take off with propulsion. And that's my science lesson for today. You don't sit there and just think, okay, we got enough.
Let me take a step further. Do you all remember a guy named Antoine Bethea?
I do.
Okay. 6th-round draft pick out of Howard University, my teammate, to the Colts, when they had Bob Sanders and Mike Doss. Both were 1st-round draft picks. They end up, Doss gets hurt. Bethea goes in. Mike Doss never saw the starting lineup again with the Colts. That was a 6th-round draft pick that came in there and had almost a 15 or 16-year career at strong safety and was one of the hardest hitting safeties in the National Football League's history out of Howard University. Go Bison. So again, talk about raise the room. Yes, you can find guys like that. And again, right, Mia, T-Wig, when you talk about drafting, it is cheap to do it that way. You're not going to, I'm not going to spend like $10, $12 million for a safety. No, for 5. But a guy in the draft, bring him in. Absolutely, I would. So, yeah, there's value to draft a guy. And like I said, he makes everybody in that room play better.
It's like you draft LaQuinn Allen. You know why? You know why that looks good? You can't say we got Travis Etienne and we just took Bayshaw Tootin. Doesn't work that way. You know what? You don't look at your wide receiver room and go, oh, we just paid Dami all this money. We got BTJ. He's going to get all of the balls, and then we're going to give Travis. He's going to be one. You know what? Parker Washington's sitting there. What if you didn't have him and somebody could say you can go get him? You bring him in because of what just happened. And guess what? You ended up having to go get Jacoby Myers. That Jacoby Myers is officially the 5th option of this team, because the 5th option coming out of training camp was somebody other than the other 4. And he ended up being the 1 at the end of the year. That's what you have to think, man. You can't just sit here and think, oh, we got enough. No, If that's the case, then why are we looking for an edge rusher when we got Strigo and BJ Green who showed up and played as rookies?
T-Wig has at least one mic drop an episode. That is the one for today's. So we are going to take one more timeout, one of our quickest timeouts that you will ever see on a Locked On Jaguar Squad show. And when we return, I have 17 of your questions already starred. We're going to get to all of them. A live Q&A coming up next here on Locked On Jaguars. Quickest timeout in history. Stay put. And we are back just like that. Let's get to some live Q&A before we get out of here on this fine Wednesday happy hour edition as the league year begins. And we are live on Locked On Jaguars on YouTube. A couple of notes from especially the free agent front, but also some from the draft as well. Let's begin with your thoughts on how James Gladstone has navigated the cap so far as we know what's been made available to the public. Jags fan Dan says, I love that Gladstone has stayed patient. Let the Titans and the Colts overpay everyone. Dutch adds, I'm looking forward to next year when Gladstone doesn't have all these cap and dead cap issues from Trent Baalke. So maybe not all Baalke defenders on the Locked On Jaguar Squad show today, T-Wig.
Yeah, I see. And they're right. But I'll tell you what good teams never do. Good teams never win this time of year. Teams that draft well do not win this time of year. And I know everybody's saying, wait a minute, Wigg, look at what the Rams just did. You know what the Rams just did? They traded something for one guy. Y'all know they'll do that in a heartbeat because they did it for us about 6 or 7 years ago. So that's what they did. They went big game hunting. That is what good teams do. You see the bad teams like the Raiders and the Titans, you know why they're spending all that money? Because they're hungry and because they ain't got no food in the refrigerator. And they're going right now with all of their cash and they're shopping and they got 17 grocery carts. Meanwhile, we'll pick up something if we need something. Other than that, we sitting here chilling with stuff on the smoker and we're ready to eat already.
Marcus, you didn't get a chance to really sound off on Maxx Crosby, so let's throw these two your way. This is from Jaguar Prod 56. In my opinion, if we trade for Maxx Crosby, we trade Eric Armstead and Walker Little. What are your opinions? And to which Dutch adds, you would giving a 2 this year and a 2 and a 3 next year with conditions to make it a 1, get a deal done for Crosby, who was supposed to head to Baltimore for 2 first-round picks, but that deal is now off, and now it is a question mark as to whether or not Crosby will be available on the open market or stay put in Las Vegas.
So again, and I talked about this on the show, didn't I, T-Wig? I said that's a lot to give up for a guy coming off an injury. And now they pulled out. I wish I would have said something about that earlier, like on social. Like I love him, man, but that's a lot. That's a lot to give up. And again, you're talking about now what the Ravens did. They went, now they got Trey Hendricks and they paid him $28 million a year. 20 at 31 years old, man. That's a lot of money, man. $20 million a year at 31. They're betting the farm, right? But again, the Jaguars, I feel, are being much more astute, much more patient, and they're trying to build a team, a culture, not just taking one player, trying to up everything off of one player. And again, Crosby is a very good football player, but he's also 29 years old, I want to say, coming off a major injury. There are some things you have to look at. And again, this game is as brutal as it comes outside of rugby, right? You're going to take pounding on your body every single play, and I don't know how his body is going to hold up coming off a major surgery, a major knee injury, at a very pivotal position where he needs to have fresh legs and a strong upper body at all times to defend himself.
I saw some weird stat. Since he's been in the league, he's taken more snaps on the defensive line than anybody. And then the next guy behind him was like 1,200 snaps behind him.
Wow. See?
I don't know how true it is, but
how much? So then ask your question, how much does he have left?
Yeah.
How much is left in the tank? When you put that much wear and tear on your body, like I said, the man can play football. I will never say that Maxx Crosby is not a top defensive player in the NFL. You'll never hear me say that. But what you will hear me say is, how much does he have left? And to trade for him and give up the farm for him at his age, coming off a major injury, that is something you have to seriously consider.
From Tapa, what comp pick did we get for Lloyd and ETN? As of right now, the Devin Lloyd signing with the Carolina Panthers would net the Jaguars a 4th-round pick. I am curious if that number does fluctuate given how the rest of the market shaped out. Brief shout out to Timmy Devil. Yes, you were right. Devin Lloyd did not get more than Zach Bond. He and his camp reportedly were expecting to net somewhere near $20 million per year. They ended up in the $15 million range. And then the comp pick for Travis Etienne as of right now would be a 5th-round pick. The Jaguars would also net a 5th-round pick somehow, some way, courtesy of Greg Newsome signing an $8 million one-year deal with the New York Giants that could become a $10 million deal dependent on a couple of contingencies there. Another one that, T-Wig, I'm going to throw to you from Big Gordo. How does the cap space work considering it's a new season? The cap is set. Everything you've been hearing about the cap the last few days was in preparation for this moment here right now. But T-Wig, are there other words of clarification that you can provide to Big Gordo?
No, I don't know what you mean about how it works. It ain't going to work. You got to make it work. You got to figure it out. Whatever that number is, you got to get with hard and soft money. You got to be underneath that. And then you also have to have enough room to sign your draft picks, as well as I think it's $5, $6, $7 million left over in case you have to start adding people during the year, like DJ Dallas and picking up the guys off the street to come in and help you, veterans that don't want to come to training camp, that's going to sit back and wait for somebody to get an injury, and then they'll pop up off the couch like Ndamukong Suh did for about 3 years at the end of his career. So, yeah, the cap is what it is, and they got people. Look, I'm smart, but math wasn't one of my strongest suits, so I ain't going to sit here and act like a capologist with you. But I know you just have to be cap compliant, and that includes dead money. That includes money you already paid people that has to be accounted for.
Let's get to some more. Marcus, Everett really is trying to ship Eric Armstead out of here. Do you replace Armstead with one of these defensive tackle veterans that are being released, i.e. Jonathan Allen or Javon Hargrave, who were released by the Minnesota Vikings this afternoon? I'll tell you this much, Marcus. I've been told that they are not restructuring Eric Armstead's deal, the final year of that 3-year deal he signed going into 2024. You tell me what that says.
So, I mean, wow, they're not going to restructure it. I mean, at the end of the day, man, like if they feel that he's going to be there. I mean, because this, like we always talk about, like, and T-Wig says it all the time, is there somebody out there better than him? And again, bringing a guy like Hargrave or Allen, it's awesome, but like, are they going to be better than what you have now? And so that's always a chance. So again, I feel it's got to be a marquee player, not somebody that could be just as good or close to, because you don't want to make that type of a move. So again, I think, where I'm at, they're not making a move. I mean, I don't see it happening. They would have done something by now if they were planning to do that, I feel. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think they would have done something by now.
Yeah, and his cap number is $19 million, but his salary is $14 million. So the thing is they're placing the value on him, whether or not he's worth the $14 million or not, because the difference in that is money that he's already been given. And so even if they released him, his dead cap hit would be $17 million because his base salary this year is guaranteed.
And as many listeners, everydayers, have already pointed out, that nice big $16 million dead cap number for Gabe Davis is already a tough pill to swallow. You don't want to throw another dead cap number into the pile. Let's get to some
correction. His salary is not guaranteed.
Oh, Armstead's?
Yeah. His salary is not guaranteed.
There you go. A couple other prospects whose names were thrown around in the chat so far here today. Matt Jones says draft Zane Durant for 3 technique. Vincent adds another Penn State name, and Dennis Sutton to be edge number 3. Take him in the 3rd round. T-Wig's nodding along. Why is that?
Zane Durant is an athletic freak at 6'1", and certain teams have thrived with guys just like that. They love the athletic profile. The Jaguars like that kind of twitchy stuff also. And the edge that he mentioned from Penn State, now that's a bulky pick. And I'm not saying that they won't pick him, but that dude's like 6'6", 255 pounds and got long arms. So that's another athletic profile trait guy. So, yeah, I mean, that must be a Penn State fan. Go Nittany Lions, but I got you.
Marcus, let's throw this one to you. Staying along the defensive line from Robert. Reportedly, the Cowboys are shopping defensive tackle Osa Odegwuzo. He had a good year 2 years ago, but he fell off last year. Other than Big Dex, I think this is the theme for a lot of these shop defensive tackles and defensive linemen. The theme of today's program is big fish hunting. T-Wig and I believe the Jaguars will only make one of these massive trades if it's for a marquee name. Do you see them perhaps making a swing for a name like that that's probably in that second or third tier in terms of blue chip talent?
No, I mean, no, because then you're not really upgrading. You're basically staying where you are. I won't say you're flat line, but you're not upgrading. If you're going to make a trade, you and T-Wig said it best. You want to go for a top tier blue chip player. When the player comes in, there's no doubt that player is better than what you have. If it's going to be questionable, you don't want to go through all the trouble trying to make the trade, go through this and that. You want to have a player that's going to be a marquee blue chip guy that's going to come in and is going to up your football team at that position. It's clearly better than what you have on the roster at that spot.
And the Jags, unless they do something that I don't think they're going to do, they're not going to play Dexter Lawrence and Devon Hamilton together in the start. No, that's redundant. And then there were some Giants fans that were kind of mad at Dexter Lawrence last year too, but they kind of gave him a mulligan because he was coming back from an injury. So the thing that we don't have the benefit of, we know the name and we know the accolades on Wikipedia. We don't know what the tape says, because I ain't going to sit here and lie and tell you I break down all 22 of New York Giants football every week. I don't. So, but there are people in that building that have to make those decisions, that they have to do that. So when you don't see them chasing big names, trust me, it's because they don't. It's not wrong. What you think it is. That's right. Just like, wrong. Yeah, they're fans in Minnesota and San Francisco. They had no idea who Monteric Brown was in January. But they found out because, word started getting out that he was a hot dude. So that's how you have to keep it in mind. They know about guys that people don't know about. And then all of the people that people know about sometimes aren't as good as you think they are. They're just good as you remember them being.
5-minute warning if you want to get a question in for Marques Ogden or Tony T-Wig Wiggins. We will have our programming lineup for next week to you at the end of today's show. Let's go to this one because we have an old friend alert, T-Wig. TBT. So what was it, 3 years ago when I put out there the news that Brandon Ayuk was looking for a new contract and his agency was pushing for him to be traded, and people said I was crazy and that's not happening. There's no way the Jaguars called about him, and look how that one turned out, folks. After a holdout, he's awarded a nice little extension by the Niners, and then everything goes to heck in a handbasket. The marriage is over between San Francisco and Brandon Ayuk. The Niners are set to release him, and yes, they are going to make him available, Tapa, on the open market. I don't foresee Brandon Ayuk being intangibly rich and Marques Ogden shaking his head as well. But T-Wig, you just made a very compelling argument that you're always going to pick up the phone. You're always going to pick up.
You always pick up the phone. But I saw somebody very credible that says, from a medical standpoint, that he's not the same. And I don't know if that's true or not, because people put out information. But I don't think there'll be that big of a market. And then the whole way that whole thing went down, the 49ers aren't known as an organization that doesn't do players right. The Washington organization used to be. That's why Trent Williams left. He almost had his career taken away because they misdiagnosed something. The 49ers aren't like that. And so to get into it with them when they don't have that kind of reputation,
that's not good.
Yeah, it's not a good thing, because now everybody around the league is going, hey, man, that's the 49ers. We know those people. You know what I mean?
Back to culture.
The chat is buzzing, and by the chat, I mean Jags fan Dan. He sent this question in 3 times, so let's address free agent running back. Sean Tucker was tendered by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this afternoon, Jags fan Dan. So therefore, the odds of him signing in Jacksonville are slim to none, with none being the prevailing notion. But he also followed up with, what about Rachaad White, another one of those Tampa Bay Buccaneer running backs who is a unrestricted free agent? He says, sign Rachaad White, draft BOP. Best available player. I was like, what's a BOP? Best available player. Ideally, offensive line, corner, and D line. It's a name that we've discussed here on the show. What do you boys think? Is Rachaad White a Jaguar, or is that just fantasy football trying to manifest online?
The difference between getting somebody like that to be running back 3 and drafting somebody like that to be running back 3, at this point, you're going to have to give him some guaranteed money, and the money that you give him will pay for 2 years for the rookie. So, or maybe the whole rookie's whole contract. The type of signing that people think gives you the minimum the minimum, that comes after the draft. That comes in the second level of free agency. They're not going to go out and sign. So I don't think they're going to sign somebody right now to be running back 3. That's not the stage of the game that you're at. You know what I mean? That's not where we are right now.
Marcus, Everett says, do you think by the next time we have a squad show, the Jags will have made any more free agent moves? And if so, who?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know who teams are going to release. I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, maybe, but there's somebody that I see, and T-Wig said it best, like, you don't want to bring somebody in, right, that's going to be a third running back, pay him a bunch of money. Like, this is the time now where you want to try to look at the draft and, like, bring your team up through the draft with younger talent that is cheaper, that can come in on longer deals, and you're not taking a lot of money away from your salary cap for players that because, again, doesn't mean you won't get starters at this point, but this likelihood goes way down at this point. So just hold on. And again, if Trent Williams becomes available or something like that, now we're talking. But there's a big key veteran D lineman, maybe. But I don't see teams moving in that direction right now. So I think it's just going to be through the draft and through, like, building up your team the way it was before all this free agency, frenzy took over, our lives.
Out there. Former Vikings defensive tackle Javon Hargrave will stay in the NFC North. He heads to Green Bay on a 2-year, $23 million deal, including $13 million guaranteed to join the Green Bay Packers. It is that time, folks. Caitlin Clark is about to play basketball. We got out of here. I gotta go.
And shout out to you, because the Lady Dolphins. I gotta give her that. Shout out to the Lady Dolphins from JU, man, getting that berth and winning the conference championship with my dog. I think you were that good luck charm, Mia.
Hey, listen, you know what? It's one of those things where you got to start what you finished, and I was excited and honored to be on the call for Jacksonville University women's basketball all year long, and so I had to be there when they got to clinch their first NCAA tournament bid since 2016. But wait, we got one more, T-Wig. I got to hit the gong again. Is what I'm seeing true? Apparently, Dewey Wingard is about to be a member of the Arizona Cardinals. Let's double check that one, because that is certainly something we've been monitoring. The unrestricted free agent, former undrafted rookie who began his career here in Jacksonville back in 2019. And so we will keep tabs on that. We expected Dewey to test the waters of free agency, but good for Dewey if he did indeed earn a contract with the Arizona Cardinals. We'll keep tabs on that one. While I'm looking that up, Marcus, let the folks know the contest that is still ongoing.
Yes, thank you, Mia. So again, anybody that's watching the Jaguar Squad show that ends up subscribing to the Get Authentic with Marques Ogden show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leaves us a 5-star rating and or review. And in the review, like Jaguar Squad show, you end up getting entered into a contest, and we're going to draw a name out on March 30th, Monday, March 30th on the show. And whoever is selected, you get to have a free lunch with me, Mia, and Tony when I come down for Jaguars Legends Weekend. Again, all you have to do is go to either Apple or Spotify, give us a 5-star rating, write in the review something about Jaguar Squad show. Right now, we're up to 10 people, 10 amazing Jaguar Squad show people have given us 5-star ratings and reviews, and we appreciate that. Again, we're drawing the name out on March 30th on the show, and the winner gets a free lunch with me, Mia, and Tony when I come down for Jaguar Legends Weekend this season.
You heard the man. Make sure you give us that 5-star review for Marcus, and you write Locked On Jaguar Squad Show. Excited to see who we're going to lunch with come October. It is official per Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. Andrew Dewey Wingard has signed a 1-year, $3 million base deal with $4 million max value with the Arizona Cardinals. It was always the Jags until it wasn't. It's always the Jags.
He'll never buy another drink as long he can't. Do his money ain't no good. We got you covered, dog. If I ever see him, whatever he's drinking on, I got it.
It's still always the Jags on the Locked On Jaguars channel. So that's the good news there. Even if Dewey can't be our torchbearer, we will be. We will definitely be back next Wednesday. I have to head up to Marcus's North Carolina for some basketball business early in the week. So we will keep you posted. Probably not going to be a Monday afternoon show. That show will be altered. We will keep you posted when and where that will take place. Actually, you know the where. It's right here. It's Locked On Jaguars. You everydayers, you're already subscribed. If you're not, make sure you are. You'll get up-to-the-minute updates when we do go live, whether it's T-Wig with the daily program or the three of us with the squad show. And so, until next week, we will catch you later.